Hey everyone, it's kantbei here. I'm a fairly high-level Fog player, and most recently, I am now part of the map committee for Advanced Wars by Webs. That means if you have any complaints about the Global League maps, I'm the one who answers them.
Oh, really? So, okay, I will already tell you one of mine. There's too many light base in one shot. Like, I feel like there's always like 2 or 3 light base in every rotation. And I think it's one too many or two too many, you know? Like, I'm fine with one light base because it's still a playstyle people enjoy. But I think too many of them is kind of wrong because it's Global League. And I feel like the moment one of the two player is able to take the upper hand, he basically won because you only have access to 2 bases. So it's just a question of what can you bait first and the first attack, basically. So
Yeah, I
man,
mean,
there's too
I
many light
understand the
base.
concern.
There's too many
Yeah.
light base. But that's my complaint here. I will also share the stream to the Discord because some people are like, why didn't you send it to Discord? But yeah, there's too
All right.
many light base, and I think guys changed that because we used to have only like 1 or 2 light base map in rotations, but now I feel like the last 2 or 3 rotation we had like 2 or 3 light base. Is it me? Am I
No,
being
there's
crazy?
always been like two or three base light maps. I think I kind of agree. I don't really like base light maps, especially for Fog. I think maybe it's not fundamentally broken, but base light maps in Fog are so hard to balance because it's almost always going to be like if you don't pick Max, you lose. If you don't pick, in Tier 2, if you don't pick Kindle, you lose. If in Tier 1, if you don't pick Von Bolt, you lose. But then if you ban Von Bolt, then what? It's just Sasha and Hawk because Javier is usually not viable. So yeah, I think base light maps are undergoing like me and Starflash are undergoing like discussions on how we're gonna fix base light map design, or do we just get rid of it entirely? Getting rid of it entirely, I think bad news for you is probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm
But
actually
yeah,
fine. Like,
we also share your concerns.
there's a few light base map I'm actually fine with, but it's only a few, and even there, I'm fine with it because I know these maps, but I will never pick these for casual game. Never. I just don't want to touch them. But in Global League, like, I'm fine with struggling grinding. I think this is one of the
Hmm.
best light base because in this one, even if you do bad choice early in the game, I still feel like you can still come back in that map just because
Right.
it's really small and everything is really nearby. So if you're smart and you just regroup and think of a plan, you can come back. But maps like Strike True or I don't know what else, like to add us is a weird one because I will admit I like the fact that this one has 3 airport. So it can be gimmicky if you're able to save some money. In one turn you can have like 5 units, which is kind of
Hmm.
good for light base. But here's the thing: I really hate the placement of the buildings. Uh,
Of the
it,
airports or
no,
just the
the
city?
buildings like to capture because it's very easy
Right.
to just deny for the entire game some buildings. Like the one in front of the mountain, if you're
Hmm.
going like
Yeah.
early recon or something like that, you can deny for the entire game that specific building. And in the center, if you're smart, you can also deny these 2 buildings in the center for the entire game. So if one of the 2 player is just smart enough to deny these 2 buildings, then it's almost game. You know, like in light
Yeah.
base, these
I
two
understand that one.
these 2 buildings they really matter a lot because light base you need their money. But yeah, like to Atas, I think it's one of the few I'm fine with, but I still don't like aspect of the map. You know, the other light base I'm fine with was Apong, and only because I could meme and have a battleship in the center. I
Of
always
course, that was
bought
always
that
popular.
battleship. I always did that.
Um,
Always. So, think these are the only light base I'm like. I don't mind playing them in Global League. Like Strike Through, I think is cancer. The new one, I only played it once, and I have PTSD because I feel like it's the same map we used to have, but they just changed the placement of some of the building, and I feel like
Yeah, so
the HQ is more
that
exposed.
one, well, not that much more exposed compared to last time. So that one, we made it so like the airport cheese stuff that was really popular in the old version can't happen anymore because like it's farther away. Also, we added more cities to it, so like it's not, you know, like you're stuck in 17k income forever. It's probably like one of the things we're exploring where we think, in theory, base light is better if there's more income. If
Yeah.
there's less income, it's problematic.
That's why I ate Strike Through. I ate the hell out of that map. It's like 16 or 17k, and it's ridiculous because one time I was behind my opponent and I was Eagle against Max,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, usually if the game lasts longer, you maybe come back, but because Strike Through doesn't have that much money, Max basically walled up his tanks and units, and he just stalled. He stalled. He stalled. And I was like,
Yeah.
if he keeps stalling like that because I'm behind, I have less money and less unit, he will win. So at some point he like forced my N into attacking him. And the worst in that is not even I rated the max I fought. He was like 8-ish and 9-ish. So I was like that guy is a low rated player. So I cannot imagine like games how they would go in the 1200 or the 1300s. I'm like, that guy is able to stall right now, and he is low. Like I can't imagine how cancer this is with higher tier, you know. And like I suicided my units, but then his counter attack was crazy. Even after my lightning strike, I had no more army. I was like, okay, that was great. I resigned. But I really ate Strike Through. Like that map, man. I don't know how it made it.
Strike Through is gone, and yeah, it's never coming back. It had like severe STA issues from what we saw. It's actually like 19k income if you split it, which is, I guess, okay. The problem with Strike Through is like, if you open wrong, like you lose 3k income like almost forever. Especially if it's like Eagle versus Max, right? Like so,
yeah,
that's a pretty tough matchup. I would never want to play Eagle into Max. So yeah.
And
yeah, don't worry about Strike Through. It's not coming back.
And the worst with this map as well is the fact that both towers are really.
Oh yeah, super contested, right?
Yeah, so if you're not smart enough to have visual over the tower, Max can just have both towers, and they're like, great. Max 2 towers.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the map we have right now. So to go back to the map we have right now. So let's speak about the map before CO choices. I will let you start with your thoughts on the map, and then I will go on with my thoughts on this map.
Yeah, this one was kind of like our experimental map for this rotation. So if you remember, like Vandalism, it was meant to fill in the role that Vandalism left, because like Vandalism got rotated out. We wanted to see if like these kinds of like lander and B-boat starting maps had potential. Unfortunately, like it didn't work out because the problem with this map is like there's some early B-boat interactions which make it first turn advantage like very severely. So that's why it got removed. Otherwise, like if you remove that, like there was a proposed fix for it, but we thought the map's not good enough that it's worth the effort to like fix it. So like we're not gonna do that anymore. But if you remove like the starting, B-boat gimmick because either both players don't refuse to go for it or what have you, then it becomes kind of like an HQ race where this scene gets broken off pretty quickly, and then these three bases and maybe the airport start streaming into this area to take the HQ, as well as trying to defend your own HQ, right? Because like if both players do that, then it becomes whoever can hold off the enemy from taking their HQ the longest will win. So that's kind of like how the map will play out.
Okay, so my thoughts. I like a lot the idea that we can actually have naval fights. I think this is the best part of this map. But that's the only thing I can praise and like and enjoy. Because now, based on income, that will never happen. You don't have enough money. And it's fine, I mean, like, it's fine. But even if the option is there and I praise it and I like it, that doesn't mean it will happen. And it's kind of sad. So it's like wasted potential there. Now, my other issue, the towers, man. I played like 3 games on it. One with 2 and 2 others in League. One of the 2 I think it's still in going. The other one I resigned. It was ridiculous. Max had 2 towers. And I was Andy because that was one of my Smurfs. And that was ridiculous because he was able to stop me there. And my unit were too slow to reach there. And he was able to like stop me there as well. And here again, my unit were too slow to get there. So basically, all of my unit were behind, and I was losing both of my fronts. So I was like, Max is so busted in this map. It's ridiculous. And usually I don't say that. I really hate Max, and I think he is one of the worst CO in the game. I'd rather play Grin than Max, and I'm not joking. Like, I prefer Grin, for real. The main reason why I hate Max so much is he has no indirect. But in this map, he doesn't give a crap. He doesn't care because he can just stomp you and there's nothing you can do because the moment someone in the 2-player has the upper end, good luck like flipping the table based on what I've seen. And my other issue, Black Bolt and Lander. I'm never a fan of maps where you start with boats you can move around. Sometimes they do it somewhat fine, but I think in this map they are really broken. Like, I will go back to my Max game. The Max player basically had that very fast, which should be... I was this player. So, I was meant to have this building, right? But...
yes.
Because he moved his black belt around, he got that building. And he denied me that building for like 4 turns until I could like kill whatever he had there and then try to capture that. So I was already behind in income. And in that front, guess what? He had also that building. Which, technically speaking, with my black belt, I should have this building, right? But I didn't. So it took me forever to like just try to get there, but even there, I didn't have the building the entire time. And I was like, okay, amazing map. Amazing map. I mean, I like the idea you can fight with navals, I really do, but there's not enough money for that. And the 2 boats you start with are really bad. I don't like the idea.
Yeah, the fact that Max took this building is again part of like the first turn advantage concern we had, right? Because like what you will do here as player 1 is you'll move the B boat here. First, you'll build an infantry, right? You load the infantry in. You go to this tile. Actually, you can even go to this tile, but usually people go for here. They unload here, and then they go for this city or this city, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that only player 1 can do. Player 2 can't do that. I won't go through like the entire line, but basically like the recon from here arrives in time to deny, I believe, this city. Like both players can deny this city technically. Player 1 can deny this city, player 2 can deny this city. Also, because like you don't know where player 1 went, because like it's fog, right? Player 2's B-boat can get stuck somewhere here, right? Like if you place your B-boat somewhere here. Player 2 can never trap player 1's black boat here. So like, because of that interaction, it becomes first turn advantage. And again, like, in high level, we have this theory where, you know, doing this B-boat rush towards this area maybe isn't even that good. But that requires so much understanding, right, of like the theory, and we're not gonna expect like people below 1200 to like know this. We don't even expect you like at 1200 to necessarily know this theory like from the beginning, right? Like they'll figure it out eventually, but it's a kind of theory craft where we went, yeah, maybe it's not actually good for player 1 to do that, but people aren't gonna know, and if people don't know the counter, then they just get away with it, and then it's stupid. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's another issue. I actually forgot, but keep going. I will speak about the other issue I've seen.
The other issue that we saw is like someone tried. We saw this game where someone just loaded the first infantry into this black boat, then they unloaded here. Like it was Javier, right? He just went here and then rushed this tower, which as player one you're not supposed to get this tower,
Yeah.
or at least you're not supposed to hold it. So Javier went for that, and then Javier also like rushed this tower with like an infantry, which was a bit slower, but eventually because like the opponent he played didn't open recon, Javier just got both these towers, and then the other player resigned when he saw it because like he didn't have any vehicles in time to like kill it, and like Javier was already reinforcing them. It's like at that point, like what do you do? So,
Yeah.
like that was the other issue. It's probably also an issue with something like a maps into I don't know Eagle or Olaf, whichever of the two pick, right? Like that's probably an issue in that tier.
Yeah.
In tier two, in tier three, it's probably not an issue. I don't think any COs can really hold both these towers if you all in one of them, even if they do this cheese. Tier
Yeah.
four is tier four. Like tier four is always balanced anyway.
Yeah. So, my other issue I had, and I almost forgot to mention, airports. I like airports, and I like them when you can have some action with them. But in this map, I think it's in purpose, they are really far away. They are like as far as they can be from everything. And
Yeah.
I like the idea you can send them like either up or down. But here's my first issue with that airport placement. The pipe seam. So you
Right.
basically waste a movement because pipe seam. The other issue with that airport placement is how far it is from everything, to be honest. Like, battlecopter are almost unplayable in this map, and it's coming from someone that likes a lot battlecopter. Now, I'm not battlecopter spamming, but like with seals like Sammy, you do want to battlecopter spam. With Eagle, you do want lots of copter. But in this map, they're just unplayable. You just cannot play copters. And it's sad. What's your take? You are really strong, you're a map community partner, so you know how it goes. What is your thought process on that airport there?
Yeah, so the pipe seam, from what I understand, is to kind of like make the airport running into this area a bit weaker. I think it's okay. So like the airport being in the far corner is kind of necessary. Otherwise, if the airport is too far forward, it gets into this center like sea area too fast. And from here, it's kind of like obnoxious because it will just either go here or go here. And then it's kind of like completely random chance, right? Whether you have anti-air in the right area or not. Because like you can't ignore like one side completely. Like that's not viable. You lose your HQ or you don't have threat on the HQ. Both are losing. So it becomes like completely luck-based if the airport is too far forward. This pipe seam I think is actually irrelevant. Like it doesn't really slow this airport down too much. Because like your first copter move is always going to be like somewhere here and then somewhere here. So that you can influence both sides. Like that's kind of optimal. I think like the only time you go copter like straight up is kind of like mid to late game where your HQ's under siege and like you're preparing the defense. The airport not so like this pipe seam doesn't really affect anything because like the copter going straight here never realistically happens, because like it's so far away. You don't expect like early vehicles here anyway. It's not realistic. So this existing or not existing, I think, doesn't matter to like the airport. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the airport.
So, like, how I would place the airport if I was making the map. Just on that location, I do think it's already much better. It's not amazing, but it's already much better. If it's right here, it's the perfect spot for me. But I'm like 900-ish. I know I want more because I fight lots of 1,000 and sometimes they struggle and sometimes I do beat them with weaker seals. So I consider myself like borderline 1,000. I'm not a 1,000, but like borderline, if you know what I mean. So I think
Yeah, I get it.
there it's like a great spot, but that's just coming from me. What do you think? What if the airport was there? What would be your thought on the airport?
Yeah, the airport's there. I think you run into the same issues I mentioned. Like, air is probably too strong, and then you get into a situation where you try to get like fast anti-air, but then that gets countered by fast recons, which gets countered by like fast tank, which gets countered by fast copter, and then at super high level it becomes like, rock paper scissor. Like, you get the right opening, you win. You get the wrong opening, you lose, kind of thing. So in fog maps, this is like the tricky thing about fog. You have to account for all of these like possible opening lines and make it so that um, getting the wrong opening and running into like the right opening, quote unquote, does not instantly lose the game. So yeah, this is why like we put the airports pretty far back on this map.
Okay, so I guess we broke down well this map. Why did you pick Grid?
So So what I saw about this grid is like there are a lot of cities where so like this city here, this city, and like vice versa. Where if you're sitting the artillery like on the other side, you can just deny them for a pretty long time, right?
Jeez.
The other thing is like, yeah, basically it was like a cheese pick. Also like if you put like artillery here, they cover like artillery sitting here, right? And like that's really good because the only way you can hit these artillery is like with air, right? And like because the airports are so far back, like I just said, it's not gonna be likely that you get fast air. So like that's one problem Grit has to deal with. Also like if you can only hit with air, then you start trading copters for artillery, where like I have anti-air to kill, right? And then the artillery go heal up, so I get like unit count that way. The other thing is like late game, my idea would be like, oh, I get battleships here, surely. I get carriers here, surely. I can
like
even
that.
go like, yeah. So like that was my plan from the beginning. Like I was gonna stall the game out super hard. I'm gonna get like a rocket. Or the other idea was like, if you get a rocket here as Grit, you can cover your HQ, so you can defend your HQ pretty well. Like no other COs can't do that. Like they need to be here. But Grit can do it from here, which is like so easy to defend, right? Like you rocket here, you put some, I don't know, 2 tanks or something here. How does your opponent ever break this? And then you put like a bunch of artillery here. Like this is like completely safe now. And then like mid game you can get like start spamming black boats from these ports. I never did it, but it was one of the things that I've considered doing. Like I'll start building D boats here just to like block this entire area up, and then your air can't even get to my artillery, and that's gonna be like super funny. Also like it's actually gonna be good. Like I can put black boats on these shoals, right, to like block.
Yeah.
So I had all of these like stupid ideas. So I was thinking all of these like seem potentially viable to me, so I'm gonna try it.
Okay. Well, I picked Sasha because I want to main her, and she's hands down my favorite tier 1. I think she's very fun, and I do think in this map we got 20 building each, if I'm right. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because of that, I thought she was a good pick. But looking back, I don't think she was a good pick, because even if we get both 20, technically speaking, most buildings are really contested. So it's really hard for Sasha, because most buildings are really contested. So it's really easy for your opponent to just say, no, you do not have your extra money. And it's the biggest issue with Sasha there. So I'm glad guys took out the map. Go ahead.
I think it's a problem that Sasha has in tier 1 in general for Fog, because like the thing about Sasha, right, is like there are 2 aspects to her that make her good. The first one is the plus 100 income, makes it so she gets like really fast tank timings and stuff. In standard that matters, because you can actually like see where your opponent is and like apply pressure and all of that. In Fog, because the maps are generally bigger, the first tank interactions don't actually matter. Like there are maps I've seen before where like you get the first 2 tanks before your opponent, right? Like it's player 1 gets a tank, player 2 gets a tank, player 1 gets a tank. Like technically that shouldn't happen in a balanced map, but even in those maps, it doesn't matter, right? And like that's basically Sasha's advantage, right? So like if Sasha's first tank advantage doesn't end up giving her pressure, what's the point, right? The second point is like, can she deny powers? And against like Eagle, yes, she can deny powers. Hawk, maybe, right? But even then, it's like against Hawk, because like no one's gonna pick Eagle in tier 1. Yeah. Against Hawk, like he can get 5 bars. Like if you give him a few turns to build up, he just suicides some stuff, he'll get his power, right?
Yeah.
At which point, if Sasha can neither apply pressure with the extra income, nor can she deny powers at least like into the mid game, right? Then what's the point? So to me, like Sasha is borderline tier 2. Like she's easily the weakest tier 1 if Javier is like even remotely viable on the map.
Yeah.
Which is why like I tend to not pick her. Although maining Sasha and Fog is I think respectable because it's a hard CO to use, right? So like it definitely takes skill. It's not brain dead like One Bolt.
Well, I do think Von Bolt require more skills than Ock because he's not as broken as Ock, I think. But that's just me. So, I guess you are in charge. Anything else you add in the intro before we move on?
No, I think we can go forward. So first turn. Unfortunately, there are no builds on this map where getting a turn 1 mech is actually correct. That would be funny, but probably wouldn't have been in GL if that was the case. So yeah, first thing I would have done with your Black Boys, I would have moved the tier already. It's just like you don't really lose anything. This Black Boat never really wants to go here because like the lander will take care of any captures here. From here, it has like a more dominant position as like where it wants to go. It can choose to go here, so like you didn't give up this option. It can go here, so you can cheese the opponent. It can go here, so you can capture stuff here. So you're never really doing out anything. Yeah, so it's always just the principle of if a move gives you more options and you don't actually give up any options by doing it, then it's always the correct move. So at this point, I think I was already aware of like the Black Boat cheese, so I was already prepared to counter it with this, and then I think I'd go for a fast recon if I'm not mistaken. So that was the answer for like people who are wondering like, oh, if they just rush a Black Boat here, what do you do? My answer is like you get the second infantry, you unload here, I believe. If they go for this city, like you will always build a recon anyway. If they go for the city, the recon from here hits in 1 turn, and then your infantry can capture this. If they don't go for it, then your infantry goes here, you get a recon anyway, and then it, tries to harass any infantry landing on your side. I think like that's the theoretically correct answer, but we never tested it enough at high level to know for sure.
Yeah.
You ended up base skipping here. Oh no, this is a war crime, my friend.
I think I forgot. Yeah, I think at that point I just forgot. I misclicked. I think I'm the one that misclicked. Because someone is speaking about misclicking. I think I did. Yeah, at that point, like, sometimes weird stuff happened here. That was an accident. But yeah, I will pay the price for that trap.
Yeah, technically, like, what I did with my Black Boat is kind of like risky. Because if you put your Black Boat here, again, like if you moved here first turn, right, and you put your Black Boat here, my Black Boat gets trapped here and then I can't unload, and that's kind of like horrible. It's safer to like unload from here as player 2, if you think your opponent does the cheese, but this one is okay because if your opponent unloads here, then you get stuck here. So like my movement was like this on purpose, so that if you're here, then I get stuck into you, but I can still unload because unloading is a free action. So that's kind of like one of the things that could have gone wrong for me. I really don't think like you should be positioning your B-boat here. Like after the first one, like it should always just be here, I think. The only reason you go here is you want to go to port, but this early on you still have fuel. And you're not fighting Drake.
Yeah. So guys took out that map. I like that. Yeah, what's the question here?
The other thing I think is I wouldn't unload the lander here. I would go here, maybe, and unload the infantry on the mountain. Then you can go for this city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next turn, like with the recon, which you could have built from either base, to be honest. Like, you can load into the lander and like get the party started against Grit, like just start recon spamming. I think you built like 10 recons this game or something. I was surprised.
I think I made more than this, actually, because I know you're Grit. And I fought many grids, and one of the best weapon, like the biggest, the best, the Recon, because you have sight and you can harass these artillery. And then the second best is the tank, because the tank deal more damage and it still has good vision. And then the third weapon is the copters. But here's the thing: the airport is so far away. It's trash, actually.
Yeah, that's understandable. So yeah, like what I said earlier, right? If your lander had been here instead of like here, these two recons instead of wasting a turn could already be here, and then this lander could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess here. Yeah, it should reach this tile, then your recons could be here. And so like it's like 1.5 turns of tempo that you lost because like the lander is like kind of inaccurate. So you could have been here already instead of like here. But yeah, like fast recons against grit is correct, and actually like because it's so prevalent, as grit almost always right in fog. As grit, so for any like grit spammers in the chat, your first build should almost always be a tank. I didn't do it this turn, like I went artillery first, but as grit, like you actually don't want to go like fast artillery on most maps. Like you want to go like recon and then tank, and then you get like a late artillery.
Yeah.
Because if your opponent opens like recons into you and you open like artillery, on most maps you just die. Right? Like I struggled pretty heavily against artillery on this map. And like I'm already like a lot higher rated, right? So like it's actually just a composition where it's so hard to play, right? Like you're just better off getting a tank. Cause like yes, you don't kill the recons that fast, but honestly most COs take 2 hits anyway to kill a recon, so it's not like you're doing that bad, and tanks are always useful. Because what tanks do is like they force tanks to attack it, right?
Yeah.
And if you commit like 2 tanks to kill a grit tank, because like it has the same defense as anyone, that means 2 artillery can hit your tanks, right? So like that's what's really good about it. So tanks are never bad as grit. They answer recons. They're really great as a shield, right? So like your infantry don't just instantly die to AA, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
MDs don't necessarily one-shot it unless like it's a max MD, something like that. So yeah, grit tanks really good. Like try it out if you want to play grit and you know you want like a safer opening. I recommend grit tanks.
A good grit always has a few tanks here and there, even if they are weaker, they are needed. I will also say that grit, I think he also likes early recons because he knows where the enemy is and he knows where to not send artillery. And
yeah, that's a good point.
I also found out something about this map really fast, and that's why I went recon heavy. Usually even against grit I'm not that recon heavy, but I've realized in this map there is a lot of road, so the recon are actually much better in this map than other maps. And
yeah, that's true.
That's because of the number of roads we got. Because
and
like heavy terrain is
just
not
like
amazing.
Yeah, it's also just like the connected roads, right? Like there are very few planes which break up these road networks, so like you actually maximize like the 8 move nature of the recon, which is really strong.
Yeah. Like for once, I do think Sturm is not that broken in this map, just because his recon are not better.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. Storm recon is not an issue here. Is the Storm plus movement on infantry a thing? Maybe like Storm gets like a slight boost in economy, but honestly, like with the B-boats and the landers, it kind of like doesn't make Storm that amazing in like the capture phase. Like it's a bit better, but it's not as if gonna be that much better than most people, and like a slight income advantage for Storm is not an issue in tier 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is probably a map where Storm would have been fine.
Yeah, I think in this map, I actually agree with Sturm being tier 1, and I usually don't say that because I'm a huge Sturm hater. Now we got a question in the chat. This map, should we focus on capture dog rather than building for income? I'm not quite sure if I understand well this question. Do you understand well this question?
Could you repeat the question?
This map, should we focus on capture duck rather than building for income?
Oh, I see. I think they're asking like, should you focus on capturing the port rather than the city for income? It doesn't matter, right? Like capture whatever is closest. I wouldn't rush the ports. There's no point because the funding never really allows you to get naval, and naval's so expensive. You're never gonna rush it anyway.
Yeah.
But if the port just happens to be like the closest thing, it also gives income, right? So it doesn't. You can treat it like a city. So, for example, in this case, you can go for the port immediately. Why not just go for it, right? Like, there's no point delaying it unless you want to rush the city. In which case, you can get like first infantry here and then take this, and then like a second infantry goes for this. But then that's fine. Here in the bottom where there's another port, like obviously you get the base first. After the base, you can go for this port because it chains nicely to this one, right? Like if your first infantry goes here, after this, where does it go, right? Like it doesn't really, it has to like upwardly shuffle backwards, which is why like people go for this port first. It's just like the natural development of your infantry. Like that's where it would normally go anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think you need to rush the ports, but because of like how the income is laid out, you naturally just go for them anyway. So that's the reason why it happens. It's not because like there's a point to rushing the port.
Okay. Now, I will add more to what you just said. If you are seals like Sasha, and correct me if I'm wrong, because that's why you're there. You're better than me, you're a great friend, and you're always amazing as guests with your insight and your knowledge on the game, so correct me if I'm wrong, but as Sasha, you actually care a little bit more about your fast capture, and I don't know how much it impacts this game, because this map I didn't play it much, but because I'm Sasha, I do think fast capture are better, so correct me if I'm wrong. That's fine.
Almost always better for Sasha, at least for like the first two tanks, to go for like maximum economy, so that you can actually get your like first two tanks, right? Because like Sasha's whole thing, like we talked about earlier, is you get the first tank, you will get the third tank out, because like player 2 will get a tank, then you will get a tank, right? So like you break the tank order. That's what we talk about in map design theory. That's like the entire point of picking her. If you do like a super greedy capture phase where you don't get this, like why did you pick Sasha is basically the question, right? Like you could have been Von Bolt and you get the exact same thing, but you have stats, right? So like
yeah,
that's why like Sasha wants to like go for like maximum income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're the kind of player that want like contested cities and that want to be greedy, I do think Sasha is not a seal for you. Like, go Vombold, that's the best pick. Javier may be the second best pick if the tower is safe. Like, in this map, I don't think the tower is safe, so I don't think Javier is that great. Now, you didn't mention a cheese you can do in this map, so because of that cheese, if you try the cheese, I do think Javier is very viable, but if you're not out for a cheese, I don't think he's a good pick. So, Vombold... if you're greedy, like Vombold is your natural you because he has the best stats in tier 1 at least, and maybe Sturm at some extent because Sturm has more defense. But here's the thing: if you go into fights, Sturm is not as good as Vombold because obviously he has decreased firepower, and that's fine because Sturm is already broken. So if you're like the greedy kind of player, I do think you should pick Vombold or Sturm because they have better defense.
Yeah, I think Sturm probably makes a lot more sense if you want to play for like those kinds of like super greedy, super aggressive infantry movements. The fact that he has no terrain penalty means his infantry naturally get to certain areas faster than anyone can. His recons usually means he can sit on those cities that you want to deny, and like you force tanks to hit the recon, and it takes like 3 hits usually to scare the recon away. Right, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, like because your recons are so far forward, you know where all his stuff is, like, right? Like you know what an overextension is and what isn't, right? So like you can afford to get away with like these kind of greedier things. The other thing is like very few people are gonna want to open recon against Sturm. It's kind of like an insane play to do because his recons are better than yours, so like you're just losing the damage race. And you know he's gonna go recons usually if the Sturm's good, so you need a tank, right?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing that makes Sturm really good on those kinds of playstyles. Yeah.
I think we can move on because I like your answer to his question. That was a good answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I went like a fast artillery here. I think the only reason I went for this is because I wanted to deny this city long term. And also, I was thinking about denying this city. I don't know like how fast you could have gone for it. I didn't like plan it out or anything, but I was like, that would kind of be funny. Also, like super annoying, and anything I can do to annoy my opponent is probably good. So I'm just gonna like try it. I didn't like try super hard to like calculate the possible lines or like how to deny it, but I knew for a fact I could deny this.
Yeah.
Which is why like I was parking my B boat on this tile for a lot of the game, right? Like I wasn't ferrying stuff around with this B boat. I was just trying to get vision on this because I was really trying very hard to like make sure you didn't get the city.
So now I understand why.
And then you actually have like a lot of recon tower. You already have 4 recons, 5 recons actually, and then artillery. The artillery is understandable. You want to break the seam.
Yeah.
But, like breaking the seam is pretty worth it. Also like the artillery to like break the B boat eventually, right? So like this is a pretty good buy. Even though like generally you don't get artillery versus grit, this is perfectly okay in my opinion.
Yeah. In general, I never make any artillery against grit. Even if I'm a big fan of artillery, I like artillery a lot. I know he has better artillery, so there's no point of trying to compete there.
Yeah, it's really like the +1 range which kills you, because like with indirects, like getting the range advantage is so huge. Like even if you like get rid of Grit's like +20 damage on our indirects, the fact that his +1 range would still make him broken. Like it wouldn't change anything. So at this point, like I saw this recon, I started thinking like, okay, maybe you don't have a recon on this side. That was, in hindsight, maybe not a very good call to make, because like I'm playing Grit, I should really know better that you're gonna have recons, right? But I was like, maybe he doesn't know the anti-Grit opening, which also is a mistake because you've played me before, right? Like you've played me as Grit. You played me when I was like fighting Grit, right? So you've seen how I do it. You probably would do the same thing.
Yeah.
So that was really silly in hindsight.
I think.
So I was like, yeah, let's go kill this infantry.
I think our third video together, you were Grit. Second or third.
Yeah.
I know that was one of the first few bunch. I remember the first one was Andy versus Sammy, and that remains one of my favorites because I learned the most about Sammy. But I liked all of our videos together, but that one has a sweet spot for me because I'm a huge Sammy. When we play like tier 3 and she's considered 3, I like to play her a lot. So that's why that first replay we did really hold a special place there, because I learned so much about her. And because of that first replay we ever did, I improved my Sammy game a lot. So, yeah, like, Whiteout Human, I would still be a bad Sammy.
Okay, so you hit my recon with your recon. Actually, this is like the correct move. This might surprise people.
Usually it's
because like usually we tell people like,
yeah,
usually it's bad, but because Grit's recons are so shit.
Yeah.
Grit's recon are so shit that you can actually like take these trades and be fine.
Yeah.
Because like he does really bad counterattack damage. The other time like this is okay is Grim and Max, because like they have Grim has like 130 attack, Max has 120. So like Max attacking a recon actually does like 5 damage, maybe 4 damage, right? But he can actually like 2-hit KO a recon. Same with Grim. Although Grim wants to do it from terrain usually because like his defense sucks, but
yeah, so here, even if we said that was the right thing to do, I will still explain further. Usually, never do that. Never do recon on recon because it's really bad. They don't really deal that much damage to each other, so it's almost like not really a factor. But the first factor here I considered when I attack you, what's the terrain type we are on? Road. So this means you have the lowest terrain star we can have, which means 0. So I will have full punch on you. Now the second factor I did look at is the CO you have. You have grit. So this means your firepower is lower. So your counterattack will be weaker. So because of that, for once I did consider the recon on recon, because for once it's actually worth it and it's actually a thing to do. And this also means the next time I can see that recon, I can even make it lower. Like if it tank hit that recon is done. Regardless of the terrain,
Yeah.
that recon is done. So that's the other reason. And if you can pick apart and kill Grit's recons, you have a good advantage, because that will force him into having new recons. Because here's the thing, Grit depends on vision much more than other seals, because he will not have that many tanks on the front line, he won't have that many battle copters on the front line, so he will rely on the intel the recon will gather. So I think like recons and artillery are top value target if you fight Grit, and this is why I see one of the two top value target. Like, I'd rather it's like a recon or a artillery over any capping infantry, because you're Grit.
Yeah, that's really good insight. Which, and it's correct, right? So much of like high level Grit versus anti-Grit games boil down to who can, like, does Grit throw away his recons or not? Like, that's one thing, and like, does the opponent throw away their recons or not? Getting the vision advantage against Grit is very crucial to make sure like he's actually manageable in the mid game, because if you don't like kill his recons or you don't like weaken his stuff early on, it gets progressively harder as the game goes, and like there's more units to fight Grit, right? So like you want to get in this early damage as soon as you can. So yeah, for all those reasons, like this is like the correct play in this situation. Like you going for this attack with against my recon with your recon is correct.
Yeah. Now
then you also like
I really killed that little one. I'm actually surprised. What were you about to say?
I was about to say, like, the fact that you attack this infantry with the infantry is also the correct play, right?
Unit count.
Because, like, we've mentioned in other videos, but basically, Grit excels on unit count, right? The more units there are on the board, the better he is, because the better indirects are, right? So, like, the fact that you can remove one of my unit count, even if, like, we exchange unit count here, like, I kill this infantry, for example, it's still, like, perfectly winning for you, because every CO against Grit prefers it if there are less units on the board, because that means indirects are weaker, which means Grit is weaker. So almost every CO prefers that we trade off infantry, right? And like this is one of the strategies against Grit. If you can get a situation where you trade off all your infantry for all of his infantry, you will win against Grit, like for sure. Because Grit has to force you into a situation where your vehicles are hitting his infantry, and then his indirects shoot you, right? And like with infantry, you can like actually advance and do stuff. You allow him to play the game. But if all of his infantry is dead and all of your infantry are dead, you can still play the game because you have tanks and recons and copters and whatever, right? And like you always get first hit, because like if you don't run your artillery, like you can stay at max range of his artillery and then count first hit the next turn. So he has to retreat and retreat and retreat until, you know, he dies eventually, right? So Grit doesn't get to play the game without infantry, but almost every CO gets to play the game if you don't have infantry.
So we got something in the comments. We already replied while replying directly to what was said in the chat right now. So basically the chat says, I see Master kantbei spam too much recon. Now we already mentioned why earlier I have that many recon, so we'll just recap on that. When you're against Grit, you need intel. When you're against Grit, you need vision to know where the indirects are. When you're against Grit, you want as cheap as you can have units so you can strike several indirect. That's the point of having that many recon. Usually I tell people in most maps 1 or 2 recon is like the rule of thumb, and if the map is big you can go to 3. Like Stalingrad is the biggest example of a big map where I would consider 3 recons. But like if you fight a Grit and you only got 1 or 2 recon, that's not enough. You will not have the intel to know where to strike. You will not have the firepower to strike down the indirect and the infantry walls. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's pretty much correct. I think maybe like the 5th recon was a bit excessive. At this point, like you should be thinking about getting extra tanks, because like if Grit also gets tanks, this composition you have that has no answer, and then like you give Grit room to breathe, right? So like usually I'll
Yeah.
go 4 recons to like 2 tanks, and then the moment your airport's active, basically you build a copter every turn.
Yeah.
Alright, like
I think that's what I'm
regardless
doing
of the
this
map,
turn.
regardless of who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I do this turn. Either I go for double tank or I have my first capture up.
Yeah. So go for like pretty reasonable movements here. Like your recons are being annoying, which is like correct. Artillery is moving to break the pipe seam. Oh, this is correct. I probably wouldn't have gotten for this recon. Like maybe 6 is probably like maybe too many recons now. Like you definitely need tanks because like you've seen this tank.
Yeah, but
Like,
here I
but-
chose to capture. That's the thing. I didn't have
Yeah.
enough money.
Copter's fine. The problem with like copter recon is like you don't have an answer to anti-air. So you always need like enough tanks to like hunt down
Yeah.
with anti-air. Otherwise, like your copters get shredded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I would have like made an infantry here to like just save up, and the next turn you can go for like copter tank infantry, and that's fine.
Yeah.
This is not like by any means game losing, but I think it is like a slight mistake.
Yeah.
Also, if like for those in the chat, if you really like recons, try to bribe your opponent to pick Grit, because like that's like the matchup where you can justify like super like multi recon openings. And like here I was just like, okay, I'm gonna try to like injure your infantry and like maybe we can get something to happen here.
I think that recon play
actually, like-
was bad. I
Yeah, this is really bad because this recon dies now, right?
think- yeah. I was actually
Yeah, pretty sure, like-
surprised. When I killed that recon, I had a small hope I had a chance against you because I was like, oh, I killed kantbei first recon.
Yeah, the other thing is like because like that recon died, I now need to build another recon. Or I'm gonna be blind for a lot of this area of the map, which is not good. So like I could just randomly run into like your tanks or whatever without the recon, which is like really really bad for me. So that recon play was definitely like very big mistake for me. I could have potentially lost the game from that play if like you had more tanks in this area.
And if I was a better
Like-
player.
Yeah, like if you had more tanks and like you were slightly better at tactics, you could have like won from this. But the fact that at this point you have 7 recons and no tank, basically like that's kind of like what saved me a little. And this is why like I say, you know, recons are good versus Grit, but you still do want some tanks because
Yeah.
if Grit gets tanks, and like the Grit's good and like he gets tanks, you need a way to answer his tanks. If he gets AA, you need a way to answer AA.
Yeah.
So, but like you can see, like I end up struggling a lot in the early game here because like I just did not have any vision at all. Like we were just trying our hard. Like this is also a mistake to be honest, right? Like this tank here, this is a mistake because like if you had tanks here, and you very well could have because you have a lander. I don't know what you have. Like my recon just died. I don't know what you have. Like if you had a tank here, this might just be game over. Like
yeah,
if you
I
had one
did
tank here, you
hated
strike
myself a lot for not having a tank around.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, what's going on with kantbei? He's so overly aggressive this time.
Yeah. So like another thing you could have done if you had a tank here is like you strike this with the tank, right? This recon goes here to get vision, and then this recon like hits the artillery, right? And then like I think I just lose on the spot if that happens. Again, because like you didn't have tanks, that didn't happen obviously, but like that's like when I played out this move, I was thinking for a while. I was like, wait, don't I just lose this game on the spot if he has a tank? I was like, you know, fuck it, I already played. You might as well see it through. But yeah, like I think the thing that gave me some confidence is like I saw there are 2 recons here, and you have like 2 here, so maybe you know your tank's super delayed. Maybe you just went like I don't know 10 recons or something. What do I know what goes through your head? So we're gonna gamble. And yeah, like here, like you can see, at this point, like I was a bit worried, like because I have no vision anywhere.
yeah.
I know like you have at least 4 recons out. Like, this game is very hard for Grit now. Um,
So I will
the thing is,
ask you something right now because the chat
mhm.
asked me to, but I don't know if you have the answer. Do you know the map Coral Lagoon? Lagoon? Coral Lagoon?
I don't know how is it spelled?
Coral, Charlie, O, Romeo, Alpha, Lima, Lima,
Okay,
Alpha, Golf, O, O,
Coral Lagoon.
yeah.
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so it's probably from the campaign, or the solo games, and you've never really
Right?
played the solo games, so yeah, I cannot really help as well because I don't know which map is it. I think it's
Yeah,
from
I mean,
Days
I've
of
played some of
Ruin.
the campaign, but like, I don't remember. Oh, I never finished Days of Ruin, so I don't know those maps.
I ate the crap out of Days of Room. So thank you for being there, Patriot. But here, like, it's probably your first time watching, so I will tell you this. Here, most of my content is player versus player, and I have guests like kantbei, and yeah, player versus player. Uh, so, sometime like I do the campaign and the Romax and stuff, but I prefer player versus player. Sorry, I cannot help with that.
I would say like maybe this recon hit on this infantry is a mistake for you. At this point, like trading a recon for an infantry doesn't really make sense until like you can get like tank or copter backup. Because like my tanks are now just eating your recons, so like you're going down in unit count or like well I guess unit value, right? But you don't really want to trade off like a recon for an infantry necessarily.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, this is probably like a mistake, but it's not a big mistake. You have so many recons anyway, it doesn't matter.
and I will go further
um,
with this. I was scared of you like having more money than me,
mhm.
but you also end up having more money than me anyway.
Yeah, it's just a thing where because like you don't have any tanks, like my one tank is just going crazy against your recons, and like building recons early on is also a commitment, right? Like this is it's what I call the punish is built into your opening, where what that means is like even if you get nothing done with these recons, you already punished yourself effectively, right? Because those recons weren't infantry, so you have less infantry to capture, right? Like you can see here, like compare our maps right now.
Yeah,
I have all of these already, and like the only reason I don't have these is because like you have recons doing damage, right? Which is what you want to do. If these recons didn't do damage, then my infantry would already be like here, right? And
yeah,
you wouldn't have as many infantry. You wouldn't have like you don't have the city yet, right? And I already am getting it. So that's what we mean by when we say the damage the punish is built into the opening, because like the build isn't infantry. You've already made an economically suboptimal build, so you have to make sure these recons get damage done. Otherwise, you're gonna lose the capture game. Then we just we wall up some more. Like maybe this isn't the greatest wall, but I thought like you probably don't have tanks yet because like you've gone I don't know 8 recons so far that I can tell. There's no way you have tanks. You probably have copters though, which is why like I went like a really fast anti-air.
yeah,
Also, just generally as grit, you want fast anti-air. You can never play a game as grit where you have like really slow anti-air. You'll just get murdered every game.
yeah.
So fast anti-air as grit is almost very good. You get second anti-air because like I know at this point because like you're doing my anti-grit opening, right? Like I know you're gonna have air somewhere, right? So we just get more anti-air. It can't hurt. Like there is no world where I have anti-air and you don't have air, and like that's good for you. Right, like if I have anti and you don't have air, that's still fine for me. So this is fine.
Let the battlecopter spam start.
Yeah, you already have like 3 out at this point. On top of like I don't know, a million recons or something because you're Sasha. Break the seam yet? Not yet. But I think you get it this turn for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you did break the seam. So yeah, looking pretty good for you so far. I would have gotten more tanks at this point, because like really you're just throwing away recons for me now, but still fine, right? Like,
I have
like
not lost
regardless of
yet.
me eating your recons.
I have not lost yet.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even say like you're behind at this point. I think like this is perfectly fine for you. Like if I had your position, I think I could still win.
Yeah.
Right? So this is still fine for you. Maybe you've given Grit too much space because of like the recon kills and like the really late tanks.
Yeah.
But again, like still perfectly playable. And this is why like Grit is really hard to play. If your opponent doesn't mess up, it's you usually lose on most maps. Like there's nothing you can do. Even if you're the better player, you will just lose. If your opponent makes slight mistakes, then maybe you're even, but you're not ahead. Your opponent has to like really mess up a lot for you to play Grit on most maps. Here we're just like, shuffling our infantry around. We're confident our one tank is going to defend against recons because you've shown no interest in making any tanks so far. Why would you show any interest now? Basically. We get another anti-air because again, like we're very aware you're gonna get air pretty soon. Like it should be arriving fairly soon because like I know your air timing based on like my airport timing. Like this was a pretty fast airport, so at this point like I'm expecting your copters to be somewhere here or somewhere here. If it's somewhere here, it's fine, I'll just run away. I also have like an anti-air coming pretty soon. If it's here, I'm also fine, I have an anti-air in place. So this is like something you have to be aware of as Grit. You need to really know what the air timings are on the map, so you have anti-air in time to respond like the first copters. And then you just go kind of crazy here. You just go for an attack in the bottom. I also go for an attack in the top. And I think this is like the first turn where I was like actually really happy with you attacking me. Because with here I saw like, okay, for sure I'm gonna be ahead after this turn. Because like you still haven't showed the tank. Even if you have a tank next turn, like I will have artillery to cover it against it. These recons for sure die, I think. And then this tower you're not gonna get. I think you should have popped your power on this turn before buying, to make sure this artillery, which you knew was there, doesn't hit this infantry. And then maybe you're okay, because like you get my tower, it's pretty hard for me to push out. You will also probably get this tower. I probably don't have an ability to deny this long term.
Yeah.
And then you will have 120 attack, which is like really good, because you're max now, with Sasha income and Sasha powers.
Yeah. Okay, I will say something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I will explain a lot about the way I play Sasha. Sometime I use my power to deny 3 stars power. Sometimes. But it depends on which CO I fight, and it depends on the state of the game. Now, against Grit, I don't think it's worth it to deny that power, at least at this stage in the game, because I know you don't have that many indirect ready to benefit fully from that power. You may have one or two good strike at that point in the game, so I'd rather start by charging my meter and maybe doing a war bond. Now you will tell me, oh, if you're using Sasha, use the market crash instead of the war bond. But I'm of the philosophy that if it's a 6 stars super my opponent has, and I have my own 6-star super, we have similar capacity of what we can do under our super. So because of that, my warband is actually much better than other case. Like if I place like warband versus, I don't know, lightning strike, forget it. Warband is nowhere near as good as lightning strike. It's nowhere near as good as any global damage. But I do value warband enough to say, if you can get good engagements and you fight like Grit, Javier, Andy, then warband is actually playable because it will give you more money, and Sasha is all about money. But that's just me thinking outside of the box, because I know people are like, Sasha spam market crash, But I'm telling you, I won a few games here and there with Warbuns. Because Warbuns is the underdog nobody used because everyone thinks it's bad. But it's not. Like, the way I see Warbuns, if you're able to do 10k with your Warbuns, this means you took out 20k from your opponent because it's half. So you just accumulate 20 and 10. This means there's a 30k gap between the both of you. And this means you had a good Warbund. And if you were losing, maybe now you are even or about to get even, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I understand the thought process. There are a few things I would correct. So in this particular game, for example, at least this particular market crash, the reason it's good is because you get tower. So you do get something from it, right? Like it's not just randomly denying power. Your thought process is more or less correct, where trying to deny Grit power forever is like impossible. It's 3 stars. You're not gonna deny it, right, for that long. Grit will always get some power. So if you were not going for this tower play, I think it's correct. But because you've committed to this tower play, I think denying me the opportunity to deny that tower is really good for you. Because like you get 10% attack and like fighting's already happening. Like we're already fighting a lot. Having plus 10% attack guaranteed this game is pretty big for you. Like there will be a lot of kills that happen. You'll do more damage. Certain walls can't work anymore. That's why like I think Market Crash is good here. With like your general Warbond theory, I would think if you're losing, Warbond is bad. If you're winning, Warbond is good. To me, Warbond is one of those win harder powers. Because the main problem with Warbond, right, is like the main problem with money, basically. Money is good, but it's not better than having more army, right? Like money is only army in the future. The thing that makes powers really good is that it affects all of the stuff at the front where all the fighting's happening immediately, right? Like if you get the plus 10 defense, plus 10 attack on top of like whatever else, you know, your power does. In your case, it denies powers, right? Which makes the counter hit hard, the enemy counter attack a lot weaker. If you know you choose to do Warbond over like Market Crash and like you give them their power and that power like decimates your frontline army, then it doesn't matter like what funds you got, you still lose, right? But if the position is such that if they're like they're completely dead, like well, maybe not completely dead, but they can't really punish you with their power anyway, then Warbond is really good. So that's why I say like it's a win harder thing rather than something you come back from. Because like if you lose your front line because you used Warbond instead of Market Crash and you gave them power, then it doesn't really matter. Like that plus income doesn't really matter because the plus income is concentrated in this area, right? Like in your bases, in your production. It's not at the front where the fighting is happening right now. So that's my thoughts around like Warbond versus Market Crash. I do think Warbond has a place. Better in high funds, obviously, because like there's more value.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to it, especially like in this matchup. But that's why like I think you should have done Market Crash this turn.
Okay. That's good. I like your answer, your response. It sounds amazing, man. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so the moment I saw this, I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to give you the tower. And because like you allowed me to get, you know, my COP, I was like, okay, how do I get my COP this turn? Probably kill the recon. Probably if I kill the copter with my anti-air, I get the power, something like that. So yeah, we go back, we attack. This infantry on the mountain ensures that I, you know, have vision over here. So like we can pop that infantry, make sure you never get the tower. Which is very important because at this point as Grit, like my main concern is like you get both towers. That's one of the ways I can easily lose this game because then I'm just fighting max but with more money. Also max with indirects. Like honestly, like it's kind of like trash for me, right? So I'm very scared of you getting both towers.
I understand. I think every seal becomes scary when they have both towers. I think it's the rule of thumb.
Yeah, because like this is what like for you know viewers who aren't aware, like 120 attack is a very big attack threshold in Advanced Wars by Web. 120 attack means like 2 of your tanks. If you're a 100 seal, right? So like you're not Sammy, you're not Grit, you're not Sturm, right? 120 attack allows you to consistently kill a tank on a city with 2 tanks or a tank and a copter, right? Which means this is no longer a very safe wall for you, for your opponent. And wall breaking in Advanced Wars by Web is huge because terrain tiles are a resource, right? Like attacking tiles are a resource.
Yeah.
Because no two units can occupy the same tile. If you launch 2 attacks here, for example, and this doesn't die, you can no longer use this tile to do follow-up attacks. So, like, a unit dying and not dying is very big in Advanced Wars. This is why, like, getting attack, like 120 attack is very, very big. Because it's a consistent 2-hit kill, right? Like, it doesn't matter, as long as they're like a 100 defense CO, which most COs are, you will always kill, like, as long as you have 2 full health tanks.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, it's so dangerous.
So, since we are deep into that topic about 2 towers, I will say this. Even if you don't have any tower, it doesn't mean you lost. Now, all depends on the map. It's obvious. Like, in some maps like Strike Through, if you lost both towers, you lost the game. But maps like this one, I think you can still manage whiteout towers. Because the towers are very contested, so at some point you will be able to, like, get one of the 2 back if you're smart. And I think the same goes for, like, Stalingrad. If you lost both towers in Stalingrad, first of all, you did something wrong, and second, it's very possible for you to just get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree, especially for this map. Like, eventually I will get this tower. The thing I'm worried about, of course, is because of the CO matchup. This is why, like, I made it a really point to deny this tower this game. Grit actually cannot really push that well. This is like one of Grit's problems, right? He can't really push that well mid-game until he gets like a lot of artillery. So if you get this tower right now, there's a good chance I might not get it for like 10 turns, something like that, right? Because I'm Grit. But like if I'm Von Bolt, then I don't really care if you get this tower. Like you can get 120 attack, but eventually like this army will kill you, so it's fine. It's purely because I'm Grit that I'm really worried. So that's also something you have to consider. The matchup, like does your CO and his CO make it so, you know, getting the tower means it's forever lost, right? Like the other thing you could, like, I'd be worried about is like if you're Javier here, and like even if I'm Von Bolt, I don't want you to get 2 towers if you're Javier, because like that's just super scary, right? And like there's a chance you hold both towers forever at that point. So it's kind of like a bit more high level skill. I think you're correct where you say like most maps, it doesn't matter if your opponent gets 2 towers, because like they gave something up for it, in which case usually they gave up income. So they can't hold the towers long term anyway. But there are certain matchups where this isn't true. Like Javier getting 2 towers is obviously worth it for him, even if he's down income. Grit losing the second tower is pretty big because he takes him so long to like get the tower back anyway, because of like his composition, that he might not get it in time and then he just dies before it happens.
Yeah.
And then here we're just like, okay, we're gonna run away from the top side, there's no point fighting. And then we make sure like we're not gonna give you this tower. Like I cannot let you get that tower. Also there's a reason why I went for this really fast rocket here. The idea with this rocket is like from this city here, I can deny this tower. if you count the tiles, like from this city, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like from my day to day, the rocket here can make sure this tower, you never get it as long as I have vision. And if I capture the tower eventually, then my tower is safe, right? And like this tower is about as far as I will ever push for like the next 15 turns, something like that. Basically, like once I get this tower, I will not push again from this side, and then I will just focus on defending my HQ, and that's how I plan on winning this game. Like, I get another rocket here eventually, and then we start getting, I don't know, battleships, carriers, B-boats, all the good stuff. So that was my game plan, from like even like last turn. So this is why like I get a really fast rocket here. And yeah, we're not scared of your copter because again, we already have like a backup anti-air, and like this is why like you need to get like 3 or 4 anti-air against if you're Grit, pretty early on. 1 anti-air honestly will get sniped. Like if they throw in a tank and a copter at it, and they always will if you only have 1, then you're kind of fucked because like all these copters will start to murder you. So you always need like 2 or 3. Usually better if you get 4 at this stage of the game. Okay, yeah, at this point you stay with your copter. I think this is maybe a slight mistake. Because if you see like Grit is still playing this aggressively, knowing that you have copters around, you should probably suspect there's an anti-air, so you shouldn't stay. But, you know, it's understandable. You have recons and you don't see it. It's like, maybe he's just bluffing against me, so
And
I
I
can
also
understand why you
damaged
stayed.
heavily your previous anti-air, so I'm like, I'm really cursed if he has a second anti-air.
Yeah. So you could have been thinking like, okay, maybe this is a mind game. The other thing I think, like, if you had committed to this area to like fight because you think I don't have an anti-air, these three copters I would have just committed it south immediately. Because like, if you know there is no anti-air here, 4 copters will win you this front instantly, and I think you just win the game.
Yeah.
If I don't have an anti-air here,
So
so like, the copters running away from the area where you think there is no anti-air is like kind of like, why would you do that?
here's my thought process. I realized it's somewhat of an HQ cap race, and I feel like you're closer to me, and soon my HQ might fall. So I'm like, maybe I will try to blow up that black bolt to HQ cap you. That's why I shifted.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I think that's fair. Although, to my point, right? Like if you had brought the copter south and I didn't have an anti-air, then this entire army dies and I get pushed back anyway. So like you're still ahead in that race, right?
Yeah.
That's why I say that, you know, that would have been more correct if you think I didn't have an anti-air.
Yeah.
The fact that I did makes this play correct. Like so you stumbled onto the correct play by accident, basically. So you know it's still fine for you, obviously, because like I'm Grit. Grit's honestly horrible. He's really hard to play. He's really hard to play for advantage.
Yeah.
So this is still fine for you. And then, you know, I killed your copper, I killed your recon, and I was
I
like,
was
okay.
so sad.
I'm,
I was like,
yeah,
that front
not,
has fallen.
yeah. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm not winning because I'm Grit, but I'm not losing, which is probably like the best I could have hoped for. And then at this point, I think I remember seeing like you had a tank here, so I was like figuring out how I'm gonna get vision. I think I sacked this 1 HP infantry to get it. Do I do it, or do I just like let your tank go for free? Oh, I think I just let your tank go for free. Yeah, this is a mistake. I should have shot that tank. Like, there's a way for me to get vision, but it's not a huge deal. At this point, you are still, you know, killing my stuff. That's all pretty good. Walling pretty well. I noticed that you did stop the copter spam. Did you? No, you didn't stop it. Or maybe you stopped for 1 turn, maybe. Yeah, you stopped for 1 turn. That's fine. You've seen like I have anti-airs. You get more recons, you get more tanks. This is honestly like still very, very good for you. Maybe not as winning as you could be, but it's still fine, right? Like this is perfectly playable. Still very easy for Grit to die in this position. And then I start capturing my tower because I was like, I really want my tower now. Grit getting 1 tower is pretty good because on COP I think he one-shots tanks on planes, which is obviously very nice. And then yeah, I think like I make it a point that I really want this tower, so I make sure to wall for it. So you need at least like 3 vehicles to deny this tower. Like you need to kill this recon or kill this tank, and then hit the infantry with an infantry. So you need at least 2 vehicles, which I think you don't have because I saw you have a lot of stuff here from like how you've been playing.
Yeah.
Also because like I've killed like, I don't know, 10 recons at this point or something. Like I would be really sad if you had 2 tanks in the area somehow. And then at this point we're just like walling some more. We use the tank to wall here because the corner is always like the easiest thing to kill, so you would need 2 tanks to clear this. You actually have you can't clear it this turn. Maybe with the copter. Yeah, so you can clear it with a tank and a copter. And then like the recon can hit here, but it's very unlikely like you can chain route. If there was an infantry here, you can more easily kill it with like a recon and an infantry and then start attacking stuff. Right? So like this is why we use the hardest to kill units on the corners generally, because it makes it less likely that they can wall break you. The
Yeah.
corner is always the weakest part of your defense in a wall.
Yeah.
Here, you're still playing fairly well. I probably wouldn't use the copter to wall, because
Well,
copters die to anti-air, basically.
my artillery is in range, and I wanted to use my copter as a bait, even if it works more than an anti-air. I do value that anti-air kill a lot, because I got other copters, first of all, and second, if that's the only anti-air you got in the area, I will be able to do whatever I want with your HQ. So that was the purpose, is to bait in your anti-air so I can kill it.
Okay. That's a pretty good... Actually, that's a pretty good reasoning. Then, in that case, like, I think is perhaps justified. Of course, like, I already have, like, a second anti-air coming, but you can't know that, right? But this is just, like, good grit gameplay for me, basically, where if you're gonna use one anti-air to attack, you need another anti-air coming pretty soon. Also, you just want, like, 2 anti-air per front anyway as grit. Like, one anti-air is never gonna be enough. Generally, like, you're more comfortable with, like, 3 at each front, so, like, 6 total. So, like, that's why I already have, like, 3 here. And I think I build another anti-air this turn. So, we just hit our infantry. We killed the copter. I can't believe I didn't get that. Oh, because I didn't capture the tower. This is why that grid is so bad. Like, these anti-airs don't even kill copters in one hit without a tower. But yeah, like, we kill some stuff. We park our tank on the city, and then at this point, like, I think I panicked a little at the top side because I saw, like, oh, he has 2 copters. His artillery is gonna kill my anti-air. And I just put my tank on a city out of range of all of my artillery. This is probably bad for me. So, at this turn, I was thinking, like, this is maybe a mistake for me. This is why, like, I start moving my artillery here. I want my artillery to defend this artillery. So, like, if you dive here, like, I have backup. This is, like, one of the ideas we talked about really early into the game of, like, why I picked Grit. Like, because of, like, he can do this. No other Chio can do this. And then we just start, like, realizing, oh, you have a lot of stuff here. Maybe you're gonna rush my HQ. It's time to defend my HQ. And on the top side, like, I think I just play a bit more defensively. Like, we do this formation, but I'm not really pushing into this area. I don't really want to push into you.
Okay, I've got a question for you. Medium tank has grit? Why?
It's very good.
Why?
So, okay, here's the thing, right? The point of the medium tank is so that you have to get medium tanks, right? Because, like, if you're fighting against grit, you generally don't want indirects, right? Like, that's kind of crazy. So how do you answer a medium tank? Can you use tanks? Not really. Because, like, my medium tank isn't gonna go attack your tanks by itself. It's gonna be part of a wall. So the only way for you to clear that medium tank is if you get medium tanks, right? Or a neo tank, or a bomber, something like that. But you getting a medium tank or a neo tank or a bomber or whatever, first of all, you don't get more tanks, right? You don't get more copters, you get more recons. Your vehicle count goes down, which is good for me. Yeah. The second thing is, any heavy tank answer you build is countered by my artillery anyway, which is what I want, right? So, like, if we get into a game state where we're both spamming out medium tanks, I'm probably gonna win because I have better indirects.
Yeah.
That's the entire thought process. The hard part about Grit, right? How do you find the timing or the space or the tempo, whatever you want to call it, to get the medium tank without dying? Because, like, your medium tank's kind of bad at attacking, right? Yeah. So, like, you need to find some way to get the medium tank and not die the moment you get it. That's his problem. But because this game, you've kind of, like, thrown away a few vehicles already. You've given me some space to breathe. This is why I can get the medium tank. As Grit, you don't want to get neo tanks, by the way. This is, like, because, like, I'm a well-known hater of medium tanks. Like, usually I tell people, if you want a medium tank, just get a neo tank. Grit is one of the COs where that's not true. Because, like, the point of the medium tank or the neo tank here is not to kill stuff, right? The point of the medium tank is to get them to build medium tanks.
So, I've got a very funny comment right now in the chat. It says, read this out, Lord, so I know you're hearing me. If you see K, tell her I'm hungry, okay? That's weird. Do you get the reference? It's probably a reference to something.
If you see K, tell her I'm hungry.
I don't get the reference.
I think it's a reference to Britney Spears song. So like she has a song where it's like if you see K, basically like it spells out as you know, like a bad word, the F word.
Oh,
Like
okay.
if you see K, right? I think it might be a reference to that. So I
Okay.
think he's saying like he's hungry and like using like the bad word. Okay, so you kill my AA. That's pretty good. I think like maybe the superpower was a mistake on this turn because like it would have been better for you to deny me getting my COP in this. Like you're not like let's actually see how much money you got from this attack, and then we'll evaluate from there. You use your super. You start with 23.2k, 26.4, 27.2, 29.6. Let's see. Let's just go through your attacks real quick, and then we'll go through these one by one after we see all your attacks. Okay. I think that's the end of your attacks, probably.
Yeah.
So you went from 23 point something to 43. You got like 20k from this attack.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's not bad.
So you lost 40k.
That's probably pretty good.
That means you lost 40k.
Well, I took 40k in damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about this. The reason I say like I would have preferred the COP anyways because like you didn't hit my artillery, right? So like all these artillery now one shot your tanks more or less with the COP. Or did I even use Super CO power here? I think maybe I used Super CO power.
But there's a second reason why I went Warbond. I knew I would be able to have a battleship.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Battleship play is pretty interesting. So unlike a rocket, you never want a rocket against Grit, by the way.
Yeah.
The reason is because he just points, like he parks 3 artillery in range of your rocket, and then he pops COP the turn after, and your rocket's dead.
Yeah.
So like this is Grit's day to day, right? Like he has rockets. It's called an artillery. It's a 6k rocket basically.
I
this
think
is like
the battleship
maybe
is very
okay.
playable in this map.
It's very playable. I think like it's one of like the late game ideas for sure.
And
Also, the
that's
nice
a
thing about
Sasha
rocket is like
idea. It's a Sasha
it's like,
idea all the way.
I think any CO can play the rocket, to be honest. Sasha obviously gets it faster because like the plus income, but any CO can play this. Even like I was very close to a battleship this game before you resigned, I think.
Yeah.
Like I was already saving up for it. But yeah, like here I use my CO power, and then you can see like this is why like your COP might have been good because like if you use your COP, these vehicles don't die because I don't have power, and then you can retreat and heal and get like the unit count advantage that way. But because you didn't do that, then I can just like murder all of your units basically like in 1 or 2 hits. And then like this is like perfect. Like your attack top suddenly collapses because like all the stuff died in 1 hit. And then like now I'm winning, I think. So this is why like the Super CO power, it has some ideas, but you have to be really careful that it's not better than the COP because if the COP actually stops your units from dying, you much prefer that over the Super CO power. Because like yes, you have 40k more income, but then you lost about that much anyway because you gave me power. If I don't have power, this is not true. And then at this point, like I think I was pretty confident I was gonna win now. Because I am sure I have the unit count advantage. I am sure I have the vehicle advantage. Like if we just count real quick, you have 5 recons, 2 artillery, 7, plus 2 tanks, 9, plus 5 copters, 14, and a battleship, 15, against 9 artillery, 2 rockets, so 11, plus 4 anti-air, 16, and then a medium tank, 17, and a recon, 18. So I'm already ahead in vehicle count at this point, and unit count, which is like one of the ways Grit will win the game. Also, all of your tanks died, which means my anti-air now have no counter, basically. Which means like I have more space to breathe, I have more space to get more units out. I'm almost at 50 unit count, which is where I'm gonna be strongest. This is like the first moment in the game, I think, where I was actually very comfortable with my position.
Yeah.
Also, because I saw like you build a battleship, like at this point I'm pretty sure I knew you had a battleship. So I was like, okay, he has very few tanks at this point. This should be like very winnable now. You still keep attacking top, even though like you see all these units. At this point, this is definitely a mistake. Like, you can no longer keep fighting here. You're just burning through units. And like, there's no way you're gonna kill this. Like, there's no way you can capture my HQ now. Like, there's too many units.
At least I can kill your black bolt.
That's true. That's true.
You don't have the tank to hit my artillery. And I don't think you have the tank to hit my tank.
Well, I don't need artillery to hit your artillery. I can just use my artillery to hit your artillery. But yeah, like, now you're just bleeding unit count up. This is why, like, I didn't like this attack for you. You basically can't break this. Maybe you kill the B-boat, but you'll use 2 units for it. Honestly, not worth it to me. You want, like, you've already lost so many vehicles. You want more vehicles now. You also, like, have to, like, start thinking about the defense of your HQ because you also lost a bunch of stuff here.
Yeah.
But so, like, yeah, like, now you should be, like, playing for time. Never really what you want against Grit, but this is kind of like what you're forced into because of like how the last engagement went. You want to like stall for like 4 or 5 turns to get more vehicles out, and that way you can start fighting again. At this point, like every fight you take here on either side, you just lose more units. And if you fall behind too many unit counts against Grit, you kind of just lose the game. Because you don't have enough units to kill his blockers, and then you don't have enough units to hit the artillery even if you kill the blockers. So he will always just outtrade you. And then yeah, like here I think like you're trying to hold on to this city too hard. Like you basically shouldn't hold this like as a normal CO, right? Like you won't hold the city for very long. Yeah. The fact that you did means because I'm Grit and you're Sasha, that's basically it. But at this point, like you don't need to hold on to this. It's also like easier for you to hold on to it by using the battleship rather than like sacrificing units.
Yeah.
Okay, market crash now. It's fine.
I think market crash is like, good when you can deny supers, regardless of the super. I think it's the best case where you can use it, but yeah.
It depends on what the super is, right? So like against Grit doesn't matter, because like he uses a COP mostly anyway. Against Andy it matters because like Andy super is like way better than the COP.
Yeah.
Max is kind of okay. Like you don't want to give Max the super anyway, but Max is also fine with the COP. This is kind of like why Max is a counter to Sasha, and why like I say Sasha is like borderline T2 because Max shits on Sasha, to be honest.
Yeah, he's
like if I'm playing Max
really
Sasha, he will just roll her, right?
Yeah.
But Egan and Olaf both try, which is why like we don't put Sasha in tier 2 because it becomes toxic. Von Bolt obviously has no COP, but Von Bolt also doesn't care. Hawk wants a COP, but he will never get it against Sasha, so he just uses COP.
Yeah.
So yeah, it honestly depends. Like obviously, like if you're playing Kindle, it doesn't matter. Kindle doesn't care about her super in most cases. But like if you're playing Rachel, right? Like Rachel cares a lot.
Yeah, her power is crap. Rachel
it's
power,
okay.
I call it the war crime.
It's okay.
No.
It's not the greatest.
It's a bad version of Nell's power.
I think this is the turn you resign, maybe?
Yeah. There's no way I keep going after that, because I knew I lost. Like, the battleship, I liked it a lot, and I do think it was still a good move, but that's also the kind of move you think about when you think you lost, and I thought I lost.
I don't think like the battleship's like a losing play here for you, right? I think the problem is like on the turn you popped your superpower, you lost too many vehicles, right, on my counterattack, and then like this battleship becomes bad then. If you had built the battleship before doing that, then it becomes kind of okay. Because the battleship zones away all of my artillery, right? So like you hold on to this city, for example, and like you just lock this entire area down with a very, very minimal commitment. Like you don't have to send any vehicles here anymore with like the battleship. Because like Grit's not gonna have a bomber, first of all, right? Like no Grit's gonna build a bomber. That's kind of insane. No Grit is gonna spam copters. Like maybe some will, but on this map it's probably like not that good for me because like your air is so much better, and like I need to buy so many things anyway. Like I'd rather just get a carrier than a copter spam. So this battleship's probably unanswered. If you park it in a reef, for sure I can't kill it because like I can't get vision. Like it's a forest, right, for the sea. And from here I think like you can deny this city. 3, 4, 5. So yeah, battleship here will deny this city. It will make it so I can't advance any units past this line, basically. which means your HQ is very safe, and then you never have to commit a single tank or copter here again. Like you just put infantry and like a battleship, and you will stop all of these units from becoming active, and then you just send every vehicle here, and like that's how I would have played that position. But because like you built the battleship, the turn you got your superpower, and then like all your tanks died essentially, that's what made this kind of bad. Because like battleship is like all tech units, right? Um, they're nice to have to like press advantage, but if your entire army dies, it doesn't save you,
Yeah.
right? And because like your entire army died the turn you built it, it was kind of too late, and at the same time kind of too early. Strangely enough, right? Like too early because like you could have had more vehicles, maybe that would have been fine.
Yeah.
Too late because like if you did this a turn earlier and then not attacked and like attack the next turn, maybe it's also fine.
Yeah.
But you kind of just like you had like different strategic ideas and they weren't coordinated, and as a result, like both ideas ended up in conflict and like it kind of ended up failing.
Yeah. So,
And then here you're assigned, which is understandable. Like you're behind value, you're behind unit count. You've lost both runs basically. Grit's now gonna win. It will take us like 20 turns to play. Like if you're really persistent, right? It will take us 20 turns for Grit to like close this game out. But Grit has won at this point. Like I would have resigned as you.
that's very good to know. So, we got someone in the chat that is basically discovering there's a website where we can play with other players, like right now. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. Anything else to add, man?
No, I think. Oh, this is live streamed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll like shill my tournament here if it's okay with you.
Yeah, share your tournament, man. That's fine.
Yeah,
Share it.
so for any of you interested, like I'm running a tournament. Signups are gonna end like end of October. It's gonna start like early November. Basically the idea of the tournament is it's gonna be fog. And the gimmick is you can only play a CO once in the entire tournament, right? So you will get multiple games for sure, because the first phase is like a round robin, so you will get a few games for sure, even if like you're kind of new to the game. You won't get eliminated from the tournament round one. The interesting gimmick behind this is because the stronger players do not want to use the strong COs immediately because they can't use it later on in the game or in the tournament. But weaker players can pick those COs, right? Like if your concern is only like to get as far as you can into the tournament, like you can play like an Eagle and then maybe they pick Grim, right? And you can steal wins that way from stronger players. So it's kind of like a gimmick where the CO pick becomes a resource in itself, something that you have to think about. So the link to the sign up sheet, it's a Google sheet. It's on the Advanced Wars by Web announcement channel, also pinned on the tournament channel. So you can just sign up through there. Yeah. So if any of you are interested, feel free to join up. We welcome pro players, amateurs. Everyone is free to join.
So, since you're there right now, tell me how can I share the link of the Advanced Wars by Web thing? I will actually share you another link.
I will ping you the link to it so you can share it.
Okay. Send me the link.
Hold on. Copy text and then here you go. I sent it to you on Discord.
Okay. So I will send that link in the chat. So any big takeaway from the game, like for people to learn what's the most important in the game?
I think against Grit, it's very important to be patient. It can feel very tempting to like think, oh, you should dump Grit early on in the game and like he shouldn't even be able to play. But if your early game does not go ideally, like because Grit knows how to play the game as well, right? Then it can be okay not to like keep attacking into Grit and just build up stuff and apply pressure. That's something that I think a lot of players struggle with against Grit. They don't know that sometimes it's okay to just build stuff up, even though like yes, Grit is okay with that as well. It's better than like throwing by suiciding all your units and then you lose the game there.
Okay, That's amazing. Thank you very much. As usual, I'm having a blast. You are a great friend. Thank you very much for coming that often. I think because there are a lot of new maps in this rotation, we may do another game this week. And if you want, we can do another stream next weekend.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
We'll see how it plays out. Because I think there is gonna be a new fog rotation, a small rotation, because we're gonna remove some of the bad maps.
okay. Well, let me know once that small rotation is done, so we can fully like take a look to what are the maps with 3 bases, so we can do another one, because we usually only do like 1 or 2 video a month together, because like we already know most of the maps. And you're great, but that's the thing, I'm occupied on doing lots of stuff as well, and you're also occupied, so you know, it's always more interesting to cover new maps than cover maps we already covered, you know? But that's just me.
Yep, I
So,
tend to agree.
thank you very much, man. You are great as usual, great insight, and I cannot wait to do more videos with you. So I hope all of you like, comment, and subscribe, and that's fine, Patriots. We all got our stuff going. So I wish you all a great day, and yeah,